Is it working? Hello?
From CR News, Decision 2022, Candidate Forum, Day 2.
What? See it until you. I think so. I don't know actually.
Well, the civics class.
I'm not. Plus, you're in several of my classes.
Giving it up. So if you guys want to take a minute to introduce each other, you can do it. We'll do a more formal one in a second. Those just coming in, just grab a seat. So I do want to honor our candidates' time and be able to get started here in just a moment. If I could ask everyone to find their seats. Thank you very much. Well, welcome everyone to day 2 to our civic engagement forum organized by the civics classes here. Thank you for giving up your lunch to come and engage in this activity. We're very fortunate today to have 4 guests who have given up their time in this busy run-up to the election to come and talk to you about civic engagement. I know they've already introduced themselves, so I'm going to have them do it in a more formal way in just a moment. Our format today, as it was yesterday, is each candidate is going to introduce themselves for a few moments, explain the office that they're running for, what they understand that office does, what's the function of that office, and then what they feel is the role of the citizens like you in society. Once all 4 of them have done that, then we'll have time, a good 15 minutes or so, for you to ask any questions to the candidates. And judging from yesterday, I have my class's questions here, and I know the other civics teachers have them prepared as well, so if you're feeling a little shy, we can ask them on your behalf as well. So the candidates have already drawn lots as to who will go first, second, third, and fourth, so I'll let them start in just a moment. But first, please join me in welcoming them to Columbia River High School. So I'll let number 1 take it away.
Hi, I'm number 1. I got to draw first, and then I got first. My name is Jeremy Baker, and I'm running to be the state representative for the 49th Legislative District. And so basically that's, they've drawn 49 different districts in our state, and mine happens to be mostly Vancouver, so from the 78th Street south. And so what the state legislature does, you know, it's really quite simple. We go up to Olympia, and we are your representatives. So that's our role. Is we go up and represent the citizens of the district that we live in.
I apologize if you want to use
Oh,
that.
do you want me to use this?
I think maybe in the back it's better.
Where do you want me to put it?
You can put it or hold it.
Hold it like this?
Yeah.
How do you like that?
That's perfect.
All right. And so my job will be go up to Olympia to write laws and make sure that the citizens have what they need to be able to thrive and be successful, and make sure our society, our communities function properly. And so it's a really important job, and the role of the citizens is to make sure that as your representative, we are actually representing you. So it's really important to stay engaged and to make sure that your voices are heard. I am a citizen, had no intention of ever running. I'm a father of 4 sons, and I was just trying to make men. And then I decided to run because it's really important to make sure that our community is well established and able to thrive. So I think that's basically it. I think that's a general speaking. Now, you want me to take questions, or is that later?
So we'll do that after all
right,
everyone
perfect.
introduces themselves. So who's ever number 2?
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
And thank you, Mr. Baker.
Hi, my name is Marie Glusenkamp-Perez. I'm running for U.S. Congress in the 3rd Congressional District. So we have 10 congressional districts in the state of Washington. They're apportioned by population, so you'll hear, like, as states gain population, they might get an extra congressional seat. So Congress is both, it's the House of Representatives and the U.S. Senate. So the Senate is every 6 years. Congress, the House of Representatives, is every 2 years. So I am, this role is the one that is that changes over more quickly. We're the ones that are supposed to be more responsive to the immediate needs of more frequently elected, right? And so the 3rd Congressional District was just changed by census data. We lost Klickitat County. So I live on the eastern side of the district. I'm in Skamania County. It goes Skamania County all the way to the ocean, and then up to Thurston, which is below Olympia, up to Tenino, if any of you know Tenino. That's where my great-grandparents are buried, actually. This is actually the 2nd time in the entire history of the 3rd Congressional District that someone has been nominated to this seat who does not live in Clark County, where we are right now. Clark County has been really a dominant player because it's sort of the center of Vancouver. I live in a rural community. I live in Skamania County, where a lot of logging, hydro. I run an auto repair and a machine shop with my husband, work in the trades, big supporter of the trades. And, you know, I believe that it's really critical that all of you are engaged and aware, because there's no such thing as not voting. When you don't vote, somebody else just gets your power and has more of a say. And you know, that's like, I would seriously consider, you know, one of the most powerful organizations is the Association of Retired People. I think it'd be really awesome if we had, you know, the association of seniors in high school, you know, of folks that were really advocating and steering legislation and advocating for what's going to come next. I think that we need a Congress that looks more like America. That, you know, we have a lot of lawyers and doctors and retired people. I think it's important that we have more people that look like America, that look like your families, and that's why I'm running. And I would also encourage all of you to seriously consider running for office. I mean, no one is going to give you permission. No one's going to come out and tell you that that's something you should do. but consider that this is something that could very well be in your life path. I think it used to be that people all wanted to be, professors or lawyers or doctors. I would say spend your time right now figuring out what you're really good at and get good at what you're doing, and use that as a launching point to then go out and serve your community in an elected role. You can absolutely run for Congress. I don't have a trust fund. If you support your community, they're going to support you in running for office. Just make sure you don't get any deweys or anything, just live your life carefully.
Thank you, Ms. Grant.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. I'm Greg Cheney. I'm running for the 18th Legislative District. That's right here where we're sitting right now. It goes kind of up to Battleground area, up to Ridgefield, South Ridgefield, and then it comes down here to about 78th Street, including all of Orchards, Mount Vista, Salmon Creek, Philida area. And I want to just say thank you to every one of you who's in the room. It is so important you're here. You're learning. You're doing more than your average classmate, your average citizen. Thank you for that. I want to echo something that Marie said a minute ago, and that is, in America, anyone can get involved in politics. I got involved. I don't come from a rich family. My parents are lower middle class. I had a good upbringing, but that was my background. And I started volunteering at your age on campaigns at 17 years old. That's how you get involved. If you want to do this someday, it's absolutely accessible to you. Go out, get involved. It doesn't matter who you get involved for. Find something that you're passionate about. Follow that, and then let that guide the decisions you make. Find something you're passionate about. I think that goes in life, that goes for your career, that goes for politics, and that would just be my bit of advice here for the moment. So it's great to be here. The legislature does a couple of things. Number one, it determines how your state spends your money, your tax dollars. Are we going to spend it on new roads, new freeways? Are we going to spend it on additional health care and medical care? Are we going to spend it on policing and mental health and homelessness, addiction? So that's one of the big things your state does. Your state also determines, are we going to build new freeway overpasses or a new I-5 bridge across the Columbia River? So these are big issues. We go up to Olympia and we talk about them, we discuss them. There's the give and the take, the natural push and pull of politics. Everybody has different priorities, but trying to figure out how to work to do what's best here for Orchards and for Clark County, for Philida and Salmon Creek. That's my goal. I am an attorney, but please don't hold that against me. I actually work quite a bit with the mentally ill and the homeless. I do indigent criminal defense. That is for those folks who can't afford an attorney. They get a free attorney from the court system, and I put this invitation out there since this is a civics thing. I take a lot of high school students to Job Shadow when I work in Battleground Court every Thursday or almost every Thursday, and I put this invitation out there. If you want to come Job Shadow, learn what it's like to be involved in the court system, happy to have you join me on a Thursday out in Battleground Court and introduce you around. So just think about that for the future. The role of citizen. You have power. You absolutely have power. Elections are decided not by millions of votes, but by tens of votes, by hundreds of votes. It absolutely matters. So again, thank you all for taking time out of your day to come and be with us and share a little bit this morning. Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Glenn Young, and I'm running for Clark County Council District 1. And that is, if you live west of I-205 and you're in city limits, is very close to the boundary. So generally south of about 63rd or Minnehaha, there's some places that it comes up to 78th Street. So close to mostly city of Vancouver. And we, as county councilors, will have a very big impact on your lives. And one of the things that I would love to get through to you is how important it is to vote for some of the races that don't seem very prominent. You know, we hear a lot, we see a lot of ads on TV for Ms. Perez and her opponent. We hear national for senators, we hear for president. And do you know how many of the decisions that they make will impact you strongly? Not very many, not as many. The real impact comes from the decision makers that are close to you. And that's what I am. And I would like to explain how critical it is for you to not remember or to not forget those races. In the primary, there are 3,000 people that voted but opted not to vote in my race. So they didn't exercise their right to make a difference. And unlike some of my other candidates, I have not been in politics for a long time. So essentially 3 years ago, something landed on a project that was chosen by the city landed on my doorstep, and it was something that very dramatically changed the lives of myself and my family, as well as many of my neighbors. And that was what got me engaged. And that is why I say it's so important that you make sure and exercise your right to vote for your local politicians as well, because they really can dramatically change your life. You as a citizen are everything. You really are. You are the voice of the people. We are elected to represent you as best as we possibly can. So we are not the people, you guys are the people. I can't explain that, or I can't overemphasize that. You guys are where it's at. So I'm grateful that you're all here, that you're willing to listen to us, and I hope that you learned something from us today, and that you, as some of you may be 18 already, and if you are, that you do vote, and if you'll be 18 next year, that you vote next year, and that you make sure all of your friends do so as well. I believe I covered everything on that list, but thank you for having us here today, and I look forward to some questions.
Thank you. Okay, so at this point, if the students have a question they'd like to ask the candidates, I'll invite you to raise your hand and be called upon. We do have some of the written questions here too, but I want to encourage you to speak up and ask any questions. So anybody like to begin? Yes.
Question for all of you guys, whoever wants to answer. So, like, if you've lived here for like the last, 20 years or so, you've noticed that, generally speaking, trades have been phased out of education. Auto mechanics, shop classes, basically gone, at least from my experiences. And so I wanted to know what you guys plan. Do you guys plan to bring that back, or are we going to keep going towards the more like college-based route that we're kind of heading in?
I'll do that one.
All right.
I think everyone could have a shot at it, certainly. So.
Yeah, I mean, I run an auto repair and machine shop for a living. I will tell you, these are family wage jobs. When you see, 100,000 trucks driving past with a snowmobile in the back, a lot of those people are working in the trades, and they're getting out of, trade school without a whole lot of debt. That's the reality. I'm a big supporter of the trades. I sit on a couple of advisory committees for Mount Hood Community College and my husband's old high school, and I'm in the generation where we actually did still have some auto shop classes, but they were all getting turned into computer programming, and I think it's really tragic when we start telling people that what you're good at is not good enough, and you've got to go to a 4-year degree or you're not really smart. Like, mechanics are brilliant. The mechanics I work with are some of the smartest people I see. And so I get it, like, there's a lot of liability insurance involved in having a 14-year-old under a car lift. Like, that, I understand why these are, programs that get cut, but we've got to start returning those, because those trades jobs are jobs that can't get offshored. Like, no one in China is going to fix your plumbing for you. That's an American job, and it stays American. And so when we talk about inflation, when we talk about supply chain issues and labor shortages, like, that all comes, it starts at junior high and high school level of ensuring that we have those programs. They're fully funded. And one of the things that we can do federally, some of you are thinking about school after high school, Pell Grants should be available to be used for apprenticeship programs, not just 2- and 4-year colleges. So that is one of the direct routes we can do to ensure, like, the preservation of the trades. So yeah, thanks for asking that question.
Would anyone else like to?
No, for sure.
We'll all jump.
No,
Yeah.
yeah. Listen, so I went to WSU and got a history degree, and then I decided, you know what, I'm going to be a laborer. So I decided not to pursue my college education, and I went and joined the laborers union, and then I worked as a brick mason in the union brick masons, and I worked up to be a superintendent. Then I eventually started a business, and then sold that business to the national competitor. And so I say all that to say that you can make a great living in the trades. Right now, union brick masons are making like $42 an hour. And so if you times that by 2,000 hours, that's over $80,000 a year. It's a quality education, it's a quality job, it's a good standard of living. You can raise your family. I raise my family on it. I have, like I said, I have 4 sons, and I know at least one will follow me into the trades, and we're really looking forward to doing that. But to your point, yes, it's really important. That's one of the hardest things that I have as a man that runs a construction company is how do I find good help? Where are these people coming from? And to be honest, this is a national issue. The labor pool for people in the trades, it's very small, and that is because we focus so much on the community college and the college level. So now we have all this dislocation of, we have people that are trained in communications or business or whatnot, but I don't have any brick masons, I don't have any carpenters, I don't have any laborers. And so right now I'm literally calling it around. Like I brought in for a job right here in McMinnville, Oregon. I brought people in from Florida, Idaho, Montana, California for a 1-week job. I brought these people in because that's the only there was no people here. And so there's a great opportunity for everybody that if school is not your choice, then we can go into the trades. And yes, like all the unions, they have apprenticeship programs. It's really not hard to get into them, and you can learn these skills and really be successful and have a good quality life. And so I think it's important to work with people in the trades, like have unions come into the schools, have other trades, and develop that apprenticeship program and give you guys options, because school is not the only option. It's a great option, but it's definitely not the only one to make your family
If I could
thrive.
interject, I think if I'm understanding your question, you were asking for those running for state positions who maybe have a role in setting curriculum and introducing bills that involve education at this level. Would you be supportive of changing the model that we have right now to include more vocational ed? And maybe I'd let the last 2 speakers who are speaking at the local level here.
Sure, I absolutely would support that. I'm a perfect example of this. I spent 11 years in a career that I didn't enjoy. And then I found that I loved using my hands. And so I became a general contractor and got into construction and started my own business in that. But it took me 11 years, in a path, in a direction that wasn't for me. And I just would reiterate that when you hear the term get your education, that really can mean many things. It doesn't necessarily mean going to college. I was thoroughly educated. I had to be thoroughly educated in order to become a good contractor, to be able to build things well. So just remember that. Education doesn't necessarily mean college. It might be right for you, might not be, but we do have lots of jobs that are needed that don't require that college education.
Yeah, and I think all of us are kind of on the same page. The pendulum swung way too far, I think in the 90s and the 2000s, to that 4-year college degree model. I can think of any number of my classmates in my graduating class who made it through basically a semester to a year of college, racked up a bunch of student loans, and then dropped out because they couldn't find a job and college was not for them. The first thing we have to do at the state level is say trades are valuable. They are good wage jobs, they are good family jobs, and make sure that no one looks down on anyone in the trades. I think that's part of the problem that we've had maybe as a society in the white collar workforce is looking down. We can't do that. We got to get away from that. I'll give you an example why CTE programs are so critical in the high school. So a good friend of mine went and took a shop class, and he learned how to screen print t-shirts, silk screen print t-shirts. Well, he wanted to go have a rock band after high school. He drops out of college, goes out and makes a band. His van breaks down in Florida, and he says, well, I got to make some money. So he gets a screen printing press and starts pressing t-shirts for his band in Florida so he can repair the van and drive home. He gets back here and he says there's no printing presses that are on the market. He now is the largest retailer, designer, builder of screen printing presses for small and medium businesses in the United States. He started it out of his garage right up here in Brush Prairie at age 20. He now employs hundreds of people, including me as a lawyer, because I do a lot of the work for him, right? It helps everybody to have CTE programs in. He didn't need a college degree to go build a highly successful business of hundreds of people. He did it because he was smart and he found what he was passionate about, and then tied that into what he had learned in his CTE program. So absolutely, we gotta fund them, we gotta make the law changes at the legislature, but most important, we need to make sure that we are signaling that we value these jobs as a society.
Thank you. Other questions? Yes?
So regarding reproductive rights, you said that we cannot assume our rights will be protected here in Washington State any longer. And so I wanted to know what role you would play in securing those rights.
Yeah, we need federal protection for women's right to choose. We in Washington State, we have strong state laws protecting that. Take people seriously when they say they want to impose a national abortion ban. Take them seriously. That is the direction that my opponent's going in. And I think it's important that when we think about these laws, when we think about what they mean when they say that, how will that be implemented? 1 in 4 pregnancies ends in miscarriage. And I had a miscarriage. And so regardless of what you think about, the personhood of a fetus, the question is, how would a law like that be implemented? Is the sheriff going to show up on my doorstep the next day and ask me to prove what really happened? That's the very real, I think that is the thing about why we need a Congress that looks like us, because we need young women. We need people that look like America to say, well, how would these laws actually work? How would these be implemented? And is that constitutional? Is that in line with our values of privacy and bodily autonomy in America? So, yeah, I fully support a woman's right to choose, and we need to do the work to take that seriously and protect our rights.
Thank you. Other questions? Any of the other civics teachers? Yes.
I hear a lot of times so there's a lot of times that they're complaining about the inflation, and yeah, it's something that affects all of us, and they're like guilting the president and the government, but all the world is like that. So why do you think, that's a question from them, I think, why do you think you will do better than the actual government fighting against inflation? Because this is not a
Question for everyone?
Yeah. Okay. So this is not a problem of the United States. It's a problem of the whole world. So if this was just happening in the United States, I would understand that. But it's not happening in the United States. It's happening in the whole world. So why do you think you would do better, and what would you do to fight against inflation?
Yeah.
I'll go next.
So, yeah, that is a really good point. Inflation is high in America, but it is wicked high in Europe right now. Germany's energy prices are up 70%. Natural gas, it is crazy what's going on. And so he's saying rightly that inflation is a global problem. So I think when we talk about what we can do, there are major shocks to the economy that are global, that are driving us, and that's why we see global inflation, right? A global pandemic. One of the largest oil producers, Russia, invading one of the largest wheat producers, Ukraine. So these big global commodities that have had these big supply side shocks that are restricting the flow of energy, and energy is one of the biggest inputs to everything we use. So I think when I think about what we're going to do about inflation, we have to consider how we can, how did we get here? How did we come to a place where we are so reliant on weak supply chains? There's been a lot of offshoring. There's been a lot of companies have gone out and put factories in other parts of the world and relied on these transportation supply chains that are weak. And the pandemic revealed that. And so what I think I bring is a perspective of a small business owner who navigated these terrible supply chains. You guys probably heard about all the catalytic converter thefts People were having parts of their cars sawed off, right? There was a point where there was literally one catalytic converter for a 2003 Honda Civic on the entire West Coast. On like the entire West Coast. I bought it, then I had a dealership steal it out from under me. You know, and so that hurts the middle class first. And that perspective of the weakness of our supply chains and the necessity of reshoring manufacturing, I mean, that's one of the drivers of why I think we have to rebuild the trades and an ability for young people to start businesses, like an understanding of entrepreneurship and the value that brings. And so, you know, I mean, anybody who says there's a silver bullet for inflation is trying to sell you something. I think it's going to take a decade to rebuild our economy and bring some actual strength back to it. It's going to take a while to rebuild our workforce. You know, so there are estimates out there that up to 8% of the labor shortages are due to long COVID, people who are just kind of permanently sick now. So what are we going to do about that? I mean, a politician's not really going to do, right? But I can tell you what else is going on. During COVID, 1 in 10 child care facilities shut down permanently.
Mr. President, I'm going to
Yeah.
pause. Let make
Yeah.
sure
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
voice in here before
Yeah.
we run out of time.
So I want to just jump in on this. So because I spent a lot of time working with small businesses, and I agree with most of what Marie said with respect to, you know, Russia and the Ukraine, an energy exporter being Russia, and a net exporter of wheat being Ukraine. Those are major, and the supply chain issues are major issues. But there's certain things that the Democrats have done to make it worse. So let me give you a couple of examples. Number one, when the Biden administration came into office, they shut down new oil leases on land. The reason you need oil leases is not when times are good and oil is cheap. It is precisely when you need them, when you can't rely on Russia or Saudi Arabia. We do oil leasing cleaner, safer, and more environmentally friendly than anywhere else in the world because of our high environmental standards. The problem is when you shut down those leases, when you come into office, you don't feel a lag effect. It takes 2 to 3 years for the market to feel that effect. So we're not only being exacerbated by the energy problems in Russia, but we are also being exacerbated by the Biden administration's bad decisions on this. 2, what we're seeing in Washington State, in a couple of months, you're going to pay another 46 to 47 cents per gallon of gasoline. Why? The Democrats passed a bill that is going to raise the taxes by 46 to 47 cents in the name of green energy. That is Democrat-made inflation.
Leave it there. We've run out of time. But I do want to ask you to join me in thanking our speakers. Thank you very much.
But Grit,
You know,
oil traded at negative $3 a barrel. And that eviscerated the fracking. So you can't just say like domestic energy.
I know.
I mean, well,
Is that how it goes?
That's how I do it.
I never did that with my kids.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our second session of our second day of our political engagement forum. Thank you for giving up your lunchtime to come and be here. We're very fortunate to have 4 guests here who are running for various offices that appear on the ballot in the general election next month. I'm going to have them introduce themselves in the reverse order. So I didn't clarify that, but whoever was 1 will be 4, and 4 was 1, 2 is 3, and 3 is 2. So I'll have them explain that. We'll have them introduce themselves in a moment. Just a moment to talk about our format here. So each student or each candidate in turn will introduce themselves. They'll explain the office that they're running for, what that office does and why it is important, and what they feel is the role of a citizen in our society. And I'm going to ask them if they can limit that to about 3 minutes each. And I might give just a signal if you could keep it moving too, just so that everybody has an equal amount of time. And then once that is completed, then we will take questions from the students. And I would encourage students to ask any well-researched questions that you have from your preparation for this, and then remind our candidates to try to refrain from any partisan debating and just stick to their questions as individuals who are running for office. So with that, please join me in thanking our guests. So who's ever number 4 is now what?
Yes, so I am Glenn Young. It's a pleasure to be here today, and I'm running for Clark County Council District 1. And so our county is divided into 5 different districts, and each of us are elected out of one specific district. And my district is more the city of Vancouver, the west side of it, so everything west of I-205. So if you live in there, you can vote for me, but if you don't live in there, I'll still represent you once I'm elected. And some of the decisions and things that we make can come really close to home for you. We control the streets, we control a lot of things that are close by. We make land use decisions, how we're going to use our land. And then we have ordinances, we have code and things like that impact you. For example, we have the choice of whether fireworks are allowed in the county. So we really can have a significant impact on your lives. And I know that there's a tendency to not pay attention to some of the smaller races, and I can't stress to you enough how important it is that you do, because you are drastically affected by the decisions that your local politicians make. So I'm a general contractor by trade. I build small ADUs, what they called kind of like small houses, but they're on somebody's existing yard. I've done a lot of remodel work over the years, and I'm pleased to be here, and I want to encourage you all to continue to be involved in our community, because you can really shape how we change, how we evolve as a society. But if you're not there at the table, you can't be involved in that. So it's so critical for you guys to be involved. Make sure you vote. and get into, groups, things. Reach out, find out what's out there. Join your neighborhood association. They make decisions that can help your neighborhood. They don't really impact them so much, but they know what's happening in your neighborhood, and they can be your voice for something bigger that you might need. So just get involved however you can. I'm happy to be here today and talk with y'all.
So thank you, first of all, so much for coming. My name is Greg Cheney. I'm running for the 18th Legislative District, and that's to go up to Olympia. The 18th Legislative District is basically, it starts up in Battleground, kind of goes across over to the I-5 South Ridgefield, comes down here to 78th Street, including Orchards, Philitis, Salmon Creek. And so things that we deal with up in Olympia, a lot of spending decisions that are going to affect your daily life. How much, whether or not there's a new freeway interchange, whether or not there's a new funding for mental health services, new medical services, whether or not what the policing laws look like. And so that's why I'm running to help bring some change to our community. I am an attorney. I work with the mentally ill and the drug addicted and the homeless regularly. That's part of the reason why I got into this race, is because I saw some real problems there, and I think we've got to make some major investments to get people help that they need in order to thrive and have a full life here in society. So I want to just let you all know that it is so important. The one thing that I would hope you would take away from this is find something that you're passionate about and follow that. Whether or not it's in politics or voting or a career, find something that makes you passionate and then go for it. Follow your dream. I think all of us here have something that we're passionate about, or we wouldn't be running. It doesn't mean if you find something you're passionate about, it doesn't mean you have to run for office, but just do something that you enjoy for your own self-fulfillment and benefit. Finally, the last thing I'd offer up, I work in Battleground with the court system, again, working with the poorest of the poor. Oftentimes in the past years, I've taken high school students on a career day or a job shadow up to the Battleground Court to see what it's like to work in the court system. If any of you are interested in that, I'd be more than happy to have you join us in Battleground for a day. Just let me know. Thank you.
This way. Thank you. Hi, my name is Marie Glusenkamp-Perez. I'm running for U.S. Congress. So the Congress is two houses, right? It's the House of Representatives, it's the Senate. So I'm running in the role that you run every 2 years, then there's the Senate that's every 6 years. Washington State has 10 congressional districts. That is decided by your census data, by how many people live in your state. That's how you get your House seats. We just went through redistricting, so we lost Klickitat County. So the 3rd congressional district, our district, goes from Skamania County in the Columbia River Gorge all the way out to the ocean, and then up to the bottom of Thurston County, so like Tenino, where my great-grandparents are buried. I own an auto repair and a machine shop with my husband. I work in the trades. I believe that fixing things is inherently noble, that work is noble, and I'm a big supporter of career and technical education programs. My husband did not go to a traditional 4-year school. I also want to encourage all of you to think about, listen, like no one is going to give you permission to run for office. No one is going to say, hey, you, do it. Like, you have to decide that that's something, you can do that. Like, I don't have a trust fund. I don't have a lot of money behind me. I was outspent in the primary 40-1. But if you support your community and you do the work to be good at what you're good at, and I think that's actually one of the things that's really hard about being a teenager, is you have to figure out what you are actually gifted at, not what is like cool or what your parents think you should be good at or anything else. What you're actually good at, and you pursue that, that's the launching pad for being an advocate in Congress, for being an advocate in your community. And I think that when we look at Congress right now, I'm willing to bet like most of you don't feel like Congress looks like you or lives the life you live or has the concerns you do. And that's a real problem because we have a representative government. And so if it doesn't look like us, it's not going to work for us. And so I think it's critical that you all are considering your role in making a government that looks more like you. There is no such thing as not voting. When you don't vote, somebody else gets your power. one of the most powerful organizations is the Association of Retired People. I think it would be really great if we had an association of seniors in high school. You know, like I think that your interests, when you don't vote, your interests will not be represented. That's just the political reality. And so it's important that you're showing up and voting. And I sincerely appreciate all of you taking time out from your lunch and being here and showing up. And I really deeply admire that. So thank you.
Yeah, hi, I am Jeremy Baker, and I'm running for the 49th Legislative District, Position 2. So there's, like Mr. Cheney here, we're both running to be state representatives. There's 49 districts with 2 positions for the House of Representatives and 1 position for the Senate. And so those 2 bodies comprise of what our state government, the Congress there, those are the bodies that make the laws and the legislations that really impact you quite immensely, and it's really hard to underestimate that impact. Everything that you see in our lives, with how the crime is or the inflation or whatnot, a lot of those things can be directly attributable by our representatives. And so, you know, I'm just an ordinary guy. I lived here my whole life. I'm a father of 4 sons. I am married to my high school sweetheart, and you know, I'm a Marine Corps veteran, and so I have a breadth of experience, but it's not anything special. Everybody can be a representative, and that's a really important thing to think about. Like I had no intention of running for office, but I saw a need. We needed a representative that actually understood what's going on in the community. You know, I think oftentimes people don't pursue these type of opportunities to be a representative because, to be honest, it's a ginormous pain in the rear end. It really impacts my life and my family's life and everybody here. All of us here are newcomers to this. We've never held office before, and it's a real testament to where we are in our society that we have people standing up and trying to make a difference. Because we may have a difference of opinions on how to achieve those goals, but the fact of the matter is that we are we're standing up and we're trying to do something, and we're trying to represent you, and that's the key, is the role of the citizen. The citizen are us. Like, we are citizens, and we've decided to stand up and be the representatives, and that can be each and every one of you can be one of those citizens to do that. And if you're not willing to do that, that is also great. But to be actively engaged is important. To make sure that your voices are heard, to make sure that your representatives that have been hired by you are doing what you need and what is really important to you. And so being engaged in that process is important. You know, you can advocate for them. You can just write them letters, and if they don't respond, then maybe you should get a new representative, because it's a really important part of our process.
Thank you. So at this point, we want to open things up for students to ask any questions to our guests. So anyone would like to begin? Dr. Quaid and I have your questions as well, and if you're feeling a little nervous, we can read them for you. But if anybody would like to ask one, just raise your hand. Perhaps we'll start with one of the written questions. Do you want to take it, Dr. Quaid? Yeah.
Well, one of the questions that's come up in my classes and that students are looking at for their community engagement projects, senior projects, has to do with the environment. So I'm wondering if any of you want to talk about what ideas you have regarding the environment or alternative energies.
And if I could ask, since we'll direct that to all of the candidates, if we can limit your response to about a minute so that everybody gets a chance and we can have other questions as well.
Sure, I got the microphone in front of me, so I'll start. So the environment is really important. I love being out in nature, and I think it's something that we need to make sure as a society that we protect and make sure that we have it for the future generations. With that being said, it's also important to make sure that we manage our resources appropriately to make sure that our economy is thriving, and our communities have good paying jobs, because it's a real challenge right now to have industry in our state because of some of the regulations and laws that we've impacted. So I think it's really important to have a balance, to make sure that we protect, make sure that we have clean water, we have clean air, and we have forests available for us. But it's also very important to make sure that we manage those resources to bring the economy to us, and so that we can have those jobs and we can all thrive. And so I think that's a good way to achieve a balance for that.
Yeah, so the oldest people in Stevenson, near where I live, remember, did you know people used to drive across the Columbia River every winter when it froze solid enough? And that's the really interesting thing about humans, is like we live like 90 years, 80 years, and so we don't remember how different the climate is today than it was 90 years ago. Things like, there is a climate crisis, like that is undeniable. What do we have, 117 degrees for a couple of days last summer? So it is undeniable that there is a crisis. At the same side, I think it's important that we have bills that make sense. You know, I live probably 20 miles from the nearest electric car charging facility, and so when we see states making laws banning the sale of new internal combustion engines, like that's something that I think does not reflect the diversity of America and of the sort of rural urban issues. So I think we need policies that are nuanced, that will shepherd us through these very dire climate crises, and that we are also continuing to develop, like Washington State, like when we talk nationally, Washington State is a leader in renewable energy because of our hydro mostly. We need to continue to diversify that energy and look at how else we can continue to be leaders in those jobs and those technologies.
I think this is a very important question. And what I feel is important is that we all have an open and transparent discussion and be honest with things. So as an example, I drive an electric car. I love it. It's great, it's fantastic, but I'll tell you where I plug it in all the time is at my home. I live in a house and I'm able to charge it. So I agree with Ms. Perez's comments. We need to really be careful with our policy, that we don't make some of the same mistakes that our country has traditionally made throughout its history, and that we harm individuals who typically tend to be marginalized communities, lower income in the process. Because the reality is, if you live in an apartment, how are you going to be able to charge that electric car? So those questions are very critical to be asked as we make policy specifically towards our climate and our environment. How do we get there? How do we accomplish goals that we need to do for our climate and environment, but do it in a meaningful way that does not disproportionately impact a certain group of people? So I think that's a very important part of the discussion that tends to be lost in the polarization, the heated debates that we have on these issues. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. So one of the things I think when we talk about diversification of our power systems, I think we have to look at nuclear, and I realize that can be a little bit controversial, but really the newer nuclear power plants that are being used in most of the world, certainly in Western Europe, you know, these are big economies, big countries, they're using safe nuclear power. We're not talking about the nuclear power of the 1940s or the 1950s that had a lot of problems. We're talking about modern high-tech designs that, you know, for example, like Bill Gates has spent millions, hundreds of millions in developing clean nuclear power plants. And so that's one of the ways that we can talk about going more green. If we want to go green, we have to recognize we have to have replacements, particularly in parts of the country where they don't have good hydro. We're very blessed to have very good hydro here, which is very green in most ways. But if we're talking about in Arizona, in Utah, in other states that don't have major hydro facilities, we're going to have to be able to figure out a way to replace those coal burning plants. And I think one of the ways that we can look at that is is nuclear. I think the other thing we can all be cognizant of, and Glenn said this, and I think Marie mentioned it too, I buy used cars. Why? Because I want to get the most value out of that car. I'm going to drive a car until it's got 350,000 miles on it, until its wheels are about ready to fall off, or the engine's going to blow up. And so we can reduce the amount of materials by doing simple things like buying used maybe instead of new. But we have to recognize that if we're going to ban all new combustion engines after a certain date, we've really got to be respectful to folks who maybe can't go out and buy that new vehicle, which we might all like, but we all can't afford it.
Okay, thank you. Other questions for our candidate?
This question for you, Ms. Perez. Mrs. Perez, I'd say. I want to know, I don't know if this is, what are you going to really, because there's a really major crime issue that's really going on. I would just like to know, how do you help prevent, crime from going up and help decreasing it? Because how crime's increasing in this area, I don't feel safe where I live, and I think that's a problem.
Yeah, I think that's a problem too. Yeah, I own an auto repair shop. I've never had my building broken into. I've had it broken into 4 times this year. So yeah, it's, how many of you have had a catalytic converter stolen off of one of your family's cars? It's bad, and I think one of the problems at a federal level is, okay, so when we talk about safety, the average starting wage for police in America right now is about $35,000 a year. All of my mechanics, I guarantee you, make more than that. That's not very much money. And so we've got to increase the starting wage. And one of the problems with federal dollars is that when federal dollars, and they talk about, we support the police with federal dollars, what they're doing often is they're sending tanks, they're sending night vision goggles. There are 39 vacancies in the Clark County Sheriff's Department right now. I guarantee none of those vacancies were caused because somebody didn't have night vision goggles. It's because they're not being paid fairly and they're not getting the cultural respect they used to. And so if we want to start rebuilding our police departments, we need to start paying people fairly. So instead of sending, they call that capital expenses when it's just stuff, we need operational expenses. We need dollars for training, for wages, for bonuses. That is how, I will tell you as an employer, when I offer a higher starting wage, I get a lot more candidates for the job, and I get a better caliber. So we've got to adequately fund and fundamentally change the way that federal dollars are being spent. So,
I would like to add a little bit to that question, because that question is actually really important as a state legislature, right? So you understand that you can see it in the streets, right? You don't feel safe, and that is a recent phenomenon. That's not something that's just happened, it's been going on forever and ever. I grew up in this community, and Vancouver used to have Vancouver, USA. It's like the American city, right? That was something that was on signs all around our area when I was growing up, and that's no longer the case. And so what you have to understand is that the state legislature are making laws that directly impact the police officers' ability to do their job, the repercussions for criminals when they actually do get caught, and the ability for all these people to the social contract of law and order. We've got a dislocation now because of what the state legislature is doing. So it's really a state issue, and it's something that can be directly we can fix it at the state level as well. We have to have a different mindset.
Were there other questions?
Yes, please.
This is also a question for Ms. Perez. So as our representative, what steps specifically will you take to secure our right to medical procedures and autonomy, and particularly women and our right to procedures like abortions in our state?
yeah. So I think that a lot of people in Washington State are entirely too calm about this issue. A lot of people feel like, oh, well, we have state laws protecting our right to access health care. The guy I'm running against is very clear. He wants a federal ban on abortion. That would impact us here in Washington State. And I think it's important that we take these people seriously. When they say things like that, take them seriously. Our rights are not protected in Washington State. We need federal laws, and we can pass those laws. So that is what the work I'm doing. And I think it's important that, like, that is why we need more women, you know, especially women of childbearing age in Congress. Like, 1 in 4 pregnancies will end in a miscarriage. Like, it is very, very common. And, you know, the last thing, I had a miscarriage in 2020. It was awful. The last thing you need after that is the sheriff showing up on your front porch asking you to prove what really happened. And that is, when we think about these laws, like, we need to think, like, how would they actually get implemented? What is the actual way that that would come down and touch my life? Because, you know, you might agree with something in principle, but when you think about how would this actually be enacted, that contradicts a whole lot of our American principles. And that's, you know, if you're not somebody that's, like, having a miscarriage, you're probably not thinking about that, you know? And that's why we need a Congress that looks more like America.
Thank you. Other questions?
Do it.
Earlier, it was brought up that roads are important, and here in Vancouver, we've often felt the issue of the bridge being built or not being built as problematic with traffic and congestion. So I'm just wondering, when it comes to roads and funding and expansion, what do any of you see as being done to help alleviate the congestion that we're experiencing?
I think that's a very good question, and we really haven't had leadership in this role for decades now. And the current legislation is diverting monies from roads and highway projects and whatnot to more green energy type local, like, public transportation and whatnot. So we have to understand the current direction we're going, and if that actually serves our community. So it's very important to have a forward outlook, like, look decades in front of us, and I think we haven't done that. We need more roads, we need more bridges, and we need better ways of getting traffic in and around areas like Portland, which has a huge bottleneck. So it takes leadership to get those things done, and that's why we're probably all here running now. So.
Sure, I'll just bring something up real quick. Roads affect us all. Public transportation, general transportation affects us all. And it comes back to my earlier discussions. When we're making policy, we need to think about how it impacts people in all the different ways that it can do so. And we should be planning for the future. And it's very difficult to do that when you don't quite know what the future is. I mean, look at how much our cars, we were going from gas-powered cars to electric cars. So in 40 years from now, are we going to have a ton more electric cars now that they're cleaner, more efficient? Or are we going to have less? Are we going to have more public transportation? How are we going to get people to ride in public transportation? Currently, our public transportation is going to impact your life in a negative way more than if you drive your own private vehicle. So if we as a community believe in public transportation and the positive things that it brings, then we've got to invest in it and make it an avenue to get from somewhere to somewhere that is nearly or just as good as with a car. So when we're making policy and pushing the car out of the discussion, but not really having a discussion how we're going to make it efficient for everybody, that's where we make mistakes. So it's involving all discussion and thinking about the consequences of the choices that you make.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's really important is to recognize that there are people in different situations than you, and that goes for all of us when we're trying to decide about what policies. Look at public transportation, right? So if you live in downtown Vancouver, or maybe even up here in Salmon Creek, Florida, public transit might be a viable option for you, right? It's a little bit more dense here. There's more people here. that might work. But if you go up to Battleground where I live, you are going to take anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour to get to downtown Vancouver, or you can hop in your car and get there in 20 minutes. There might only be, in Skamania County, there's like one bus that comes up in the morning and one bus that goes back in the afternoon. It's very similar in Battleground. So what we have to recognize when we're trying to build transportation packages, Glenn said this, you have to build a bridge, for example, that can handle the amount of traffic now. That doesn't make traffic worse. That might mean an extra lane now, but you can also design it for at a time when it comes that there is the population density to support more public transit. Yeah, let's future-proof things. If we're going to build a 100 to 150-year bridge, which that's probably what we build when we talk about big construction projects like this, yeah, you got to think about, are there going to be more or less cars 30 years from now, because our artificial intelligence systems are going to be so good that they can just stagger each car at 100 miles an hour 3 feet off the bumper of the car in front of you, right? And that's not unrealistic. So we've got to think about these are the complexities of these issues as we think about what we're going to do for the next 100, 150 years.
I think we're going to need to stop it there. But thank you very much. So I want to ask you all to join me in thanking our guests.